Falling too fast to prepare for this. Tripping in the world could be dangerous. Everybody circling his vulture.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today for the 6th event of our 12-part Sports Tech and Innovation series powered by FanSaves. Our Sports Tech and Innovation series is a bi-weekly virtual event focusing on the changing landscape of the sports industry through technology and innovative solutions which are overcoming traditional barriers. Throughout this series, we'll hear from some of the top sports executives and industry leaders and learn from their perspectives on how technology is making an impact within their organizations. We'll also hear from some of the hottest emerging sports tech startups who are driving change and revolutionizing the traditional sports industry. Today's event is focused on collegiate technology and the digital platforms driving this industry forward. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our FanSaves co-founder and CEO, Shannon Ferguson, who will be our timekeeper today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to hear from all of our panelists and presenting startups, and we hope that you guys will learn a lot about collegiate tech.
We would love to know where everyone is attending from today, so feel free to leave your LinkedIn in the URL and engage with the other attendees in the chat. Before we meet our esteemed panelists for today's event, we'd like to take a moment to thank our partners for their support of this series. Sports Tech Business Digest is your home for recent news about new and emerging sports technology. The founder and author, Costa Cladionis, has over 20 years experience in technology, focusing on the sports and entertainment business. Algonquin College. The sports business program at Algonquin College prepares students for an exciting career in the ever-growing multi-billion-dollar sports industry. The program positions students to work in the management and business aspects of the sports industry. Events.com. Events.com is the preferred event management technology supporting events around the globe. Their mobile-first ticketing and registration platform is an event organizer's one-stop shop for payment processing, digital marketing, and sponsorship needs. To learn more, visit events.com. The USBA. The mission of the University Sports Business Alliance is to connect and grow university sports business clubs through a supportive alliance that aims to develop professional networks and industry skills. Their goals include improving the education and opportunities available to all aspiring sports business professionals. Check them out on LinkedIn. And lastly, this event is powered by FanSaves. FanSaves is a sponsorship inventory asset enabling teams, athletes, and organizations to activate and engage with their sponsors. For more information about our platform, visit fansaves.com or connect with us on LinkedIn to set up a demo. A quick reminder before we begin, this event is being recorded and will be posted to our FanSaves YouTube channel. And without further ado, I am pleased to welcome our 4 esteemed panelists that will be taking part in today's event. Our first panelist today is Dane Gomez. Dane heads up corporate partnerships for U Sports, the governing body of the Canadian University Athletics. A graduate of the University of Toronto, Dane also has a strong tech background with experience working for companies like Pivotal Labs and Tribal Scale. Prior to his role with U Sports, he spent time in the CFL and professional motorsports. Dane, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris.
Great, happy to have you. Our second panelist today is Sheryl Hunt. Sheryl is the Assistant Director of Brand Strategy and Marketing at Carleton University. In addition to her almost a decade of experience in the collegiate space, she also has close to a decade spent with the Ottawa 67s in the Ontario Hockey League, where she served as the Director of Ticket Sales. Sheryl, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today.
It's certainly my pleasure. Looking forward to it.
Great to have you. Next up, we have Brandon Mastromartino. Brandon is the founder of Mastromartino Sports Marketing and is also currently a clinical assistant professor of sports management at Southern Methodist University. Brandon holds a master's degree and a PhD in sport management from the University of Georgia, in addition to his degree from Western University. Brandon is a Google Scholar and previously spent time at Octagon and with the Florida Panthers in the NHL. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us here today for this event.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me, everyone.
And last, but certainly not least, Michele Dion. Michele currently serves as the Manager of Sports and Event Information Services for the University of Ottawa. Michele is a graduate of the University of Laval, holding a degree in public communications and previously spent time with organizations like Ottawa Sports and Entertainment and the Canadian Soccer Association. Michele, it's so great to have you a part of this event today. Thank you for being here with us.
Glad to be here.
And thank you to all of our participating in today's panelist discussion. We look forward to hearing all of your insights and your thought about where the industry is headed. And now let's kick off the panel with our first question. directed to Dane. Dane, with U Sports not hosting any national championships during the 2020-2021 season due to COVID-19, how is U Sports integrated digital to further its sponsorship strategy?
Yeah, thanks, Tris, for that great question. So, we were accelerating our digital roadmap, and COVID's really made that go even further and quicker. So for us, it was really looking at a number of new ways and additional ways to make whole on our existing and net new partnership engagements. So traditionally, our Lieutenant Governor's Athletic Awards were held in person, and that reverted to a digital format with the support of our broadcast partner, CBC Sports. And the digital format really helped to further amplify engagement with each of our partners and award winners within the programming compared to the traditional in-person format. And also, like many other properties as well, during the pandemic, we integrated partners with our U Sports Live, which was essentially digital webcast reruns of select national championships. And within that, there was integrated partner programming as well. And apart from this too, a lot of our content with our partners is provided in an informational and value-added standpoint for our member institutions through digital programming, and such sessions like, best practices with PPE and masks, with an eventual return to work and play are just some of the integrations, to name a few.
Yeah, really great insights there from Dane, one of the leaders in Canadian collegiate athletics. So thank you for that, Dane. I want to turn next to Sheryl. Technology has advanced rapidly over the past 10 years. Can you speak to any technologies that have made your life easier, whether that be in marketing, communication, recruiting tools, athletics, or administration?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it makes it easier, but it makes it more work at the same time. But in terms of getting more marketing out there and trying to tailor that question specific to the collegiate space, what I would say is we are usually very underfunded in terms of the marketing side of things. We don't have budgets for, professionally produced video or very professionally curated content, but we do have a campus of, they all vary, but our campus here at Carleton is relatively small, around 30,000. So the technologies that most came to mind are the ones that allow us to leverage our ambassadors that we have on campus. We have 800 athletes, for instance. We have about 300-400 part-time students. And I know one of your presenters here today, Nate Behar, was an athlete here. And when we interviewed him, we had to queue it up. We had to have a social media manager, and they had to have a camera. Then it would be uploaded and then edited and then put on social. Whereas now, the advent of technology, even in that span of time, has enabled, the iPhone I have right now, Billie Eilish made a video out of. So we don't need those fancy camera and equipment anymore. The students have in their pocket all that they need to make or curate really cool content, not at all hurt by the advent of, platforms like, TikTok or even all the filters and things like that. And then they can just put that up for us right away. And also, the riding with that trend of more amateur content being seen as more authentic to our main demographic, sort of all of that rolled up in a ball, I would say would be probably the biggest impact that comes to mind.
Yeah, definitely. Smartphones and social media have made a big impact on how we promote and follow our favorite university athletics departments and players. So great insight there from Sheryl. I appreciate that. I want to turn to Brandon next for the next question. Much of your published research to date has focused on fan behavior. In what areas do you think fan behavior will have been indefinitely altered due to the pandemic?
Yeah, so I think in a couple of ways. One, this was sort of on track already before the pandemic, but that at-home watching experience of watching a sporting event has gotten better and better over time and as technology increased. So you can buy a massive TV for pretty cheap. And we know with 4K technology, the ability to stream other games other than your favorite team, companion apps on your phone, and then just, the beer is cheaper and a lot closer in your fridge and the walk from your living room, as opposed to going out to the concession stand, paying $15 for a beer, for food, stuff like that, worrying about parking, how to get to a game. So that at-home viewing experience has been getting better and better. And with the pandemic, that has been accelerated because a lot of sports leagues, that's all they had was trying to get people to watch on TV. They couldn't bring people into the stadium. So enhanced television broadcasts, enhanced apps and social media presence technology So I think coming out of the pandemic, sports organizations are going to be hard pressed to get people to come back to stadiums because of that at-home viewing experience has just gotten so much better and easier. And secondly, I think, people might be a little bit skittish to spend that discretionary income on sporting events. Although, we're going to get to a point where it is safe to gather in large crowds again someday. A lot of people lost their jobs or were on furlough for a long time. And so might be more inclined to spend that money that they start earning again on the necessary things you need to live, as opposed to going out to a sporting event or buying sport-related products. So I think those are the two major challenges that sports organizations face from consumers coming out of this.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Great insight from Brandon. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Turning next to Michele, a big part of your position at Ottawa revolves around events. With limitations on attendance due to the pandemic, what other avenues have you utilized to continue to engage with the Ottawa U community?
Yeah, and the pandemic has really shaken everything, a bit like all of the other panelists I've spoken to before me. Everything stopped very abruptly, and we were very quickly faced with our shortcomings in terms of technology and connecting that community in the absence of having those tools in place. And a bit like I had seen with National Sport Organization in the past, I found that we were very shy in investing in technology for business growth. We have coaches that have all the tools in the world that are super developed in terms of technology application for performance. But on the business side of things, we were very, I say not very sophisticated is a good way of putting it. So for the events side of things, we just took it back to basics. How can we now leverage technology to remove barriers for fans to engage? So for us, it was as far back as going to reevaluating our online ticketing system, and how can we make that a more efficient proposition for fans once we can come back, so that we have flexibility, so that we have kind of mobile ticketing in place, so that we don't have to have all the pandemic's extra steps be a hurdle or another barrier for fans to come back and connect. And I think, to Sheryl's point, the other piece for us was really sorting out social media and how we can better leverage that feeling of community that a lot of our students are not experiencing right now because they're not on campus. So it's a lot of going back to basics. So it's not much of an innovation, but in a world of institutional, like universities, it seems like a big step already.
Definitely, and community is so important. So it's great that you found other ways to continue to engage with the Ottawa U community, the students, the athletes, and everyone involved. Dane, sports properties have been slower to adopt to technology, especially in collegiate and university sports. Knowing this, how do you generate interest in digital and tech assets from brands?
So when it comes down to interest in tech and digital assets from our partners, I mean, naturally speaking, our audience and demographic engages with that content and programming through that realm itself. And more we see many brands, shifting from traditional static and print assets to digital. A great example of that, comes with, signage moving from traditional static to the digital realm of LED and things like that. But also from a broadcast and digital broadcast standpoint, and linear as well, despite 32 fewer broadcasts combined for both respectively, we still saw our viewership and impressions across broadcast and digital go up by over 10%. And this really relates to, how our geofences and paywalls were removed, especially during our Final Eight basketball and hockey championships, which expanded our partners' brand reach and correspondingly audience engagement as well. So apart from this as well, our exceptional marketing communications team really continues to push things forward in new and innovative ways with brands, working on different campaigns related to machine learning, artificial intelligence, gamification, just a few key, tech areas to further these brand KPIs going forward as well.
Yeah, really great to hear U Sports is on the ball and adopting those technologies to continue to further and achieve their goals. Turning next to Sheryl, what is one area of the college experience, in your opinion, that is ripe for innovation?
Well, I guess jumping off of what Michele said, all of it. Yeah, you know, we're sort of just, it's very, it's sort of I joke around from private, like, you know, pro or semi-pro sport, moving to collegiate sport, going from a speedboat to a cruise ship. So it does take some time. In the interest of today's conversation, I would say I would probably focus on, first of all, the in-game experience, and which will take a financial investment, because very much along the line of what Brandon was saying, even before COVID, I don't know about you, Brandon, but a lot of the literature I was reading, my background being in ticket sales, was that this competition for the, you know, it used to be second screen, now third screen, and all that sort of stuff, and all the points Brandon made about the cheaper beer and the proximity to it and all that. So I think that we'll have to, if we want to sustain any kind of an atmosphere or fan presence at our live events, whenever, God willing, we get them back, we're really going to have to invest in the in-game experience and also promote it, so that people understand that they're missing something by not being at the event. Your hardcore sports fans maybe would be happy to watch from the couch, but I think your people that really want to see it as a social, so almost bringing the screen back into the live event. And also, I also think it's like esports, which I also think is another opportunity for universities. But what we're seeing with the demographic, our student demographic within the esports space, is they will watch, so they want to watch our live games at home on a screen, but the esports, which occurs on a screen, they'll go and watch in person live. So it's this strange juxtaposition. So I really think that at the end of the day, what our demographic, if we're thinking about the students being our main demographic, I mean, not that they're our only one, is to sort of blend the two somehow and make them understand that they are missing something. And, you know, also giving them lots of user-generated content opportunities while they're at games. So, because if you know, if it's not on Instagram, it didn't happen, or some sort of saying along those lines. So I think I would focus on that one for today's answers. There's many places that the collegiate space, looking at Dane, certainly we could do corporate partnerships a lot better. I think, you know, with our American colleagues being on here, having us focus or drill down more on their alumni model that brings the school so much more money and bigger stadiums with more people. And there's a lot of things we could focus on, but I think that our immediate need coming into the fall is the in-game experience.
Yeah, and really cool to bring up esports and the relationship to collegiate athletics. So great insights there from Sheryl. Thank you for that. Next for Brandon, as a professor of a sports business program at SMU, how much attention in the course curriculum is geared towards technology in sports and or sports tech entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so a lot of it is, you know, a big part of our program and just the whole sport management field in general is preparing students for what's next. What is the big future trend? What are they going to be? What challenges are they going to be faced with in their career? And those two biggest topics we've already heard touched on a little bit here is esports and sports gambling, as it's becoming more legalized throughout the U.S. And elements of it is in Canada as well. And so those have large tech components. So as we prepare students for those future challenges, we weave those into every class we teach. You know, esports, gambling, that has a marketing element, a financial element, there's legal aspects, sociological impact. And so we always involve current events and current trends in all of our curriculum. And as well here at SMU, and again, what I think most sport management programs should have is building sort of those assignments and lessons that provide opportunities for solving real world problems. So like case studies that I have in my classes that I teach really prepare students for that hands-on experience. And I try to put students in the shoes of a sports executive or an independent consultant or a startup to really help build that entrepreneurial spirit, that mindset, and developing those skills to you know, solve those problems on their own through building a company or being an independent contractor or something like that. So really trying to weave all those elements in everything we do is a big part of what we do here at SMU and what I think most programs should do as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's great to hear that there's an emphasis on sports technology. I think this whole sports tech industry is just ready to explode right now. There's so much great innovation coming out of the industry, and we're going to hear from some of the founders that are leading that innovation here shortly. So great insights there from Brandon. Thank you for that. And to round out the first half of the event, I'm going to turn to Michele next for our last question. And curious to know, what is your community engagement platform of choice? And talk about a campaign that you recently ran for the Ottawa GGs.
Yeah, and it's funny, when you sent me that question, I had a little short moment of panic because I felt very ill-equipped to answer that question. If I'm being very open and transparent, I feel that that's probably an area we haven't done a great job. If I look at our varsity group as a whole, there's been a lot of season changes and ups and downs for a number of reasons, but I think that's, we're looking at it as a huge area of opportunity for sure. One key campaign, and I won't take full credit for it, I think the partners we have around the table in Sheryl and her team and Dane and the youth sports team, the Final 8 campaign that we run as a partnership with our friends also at Lansdowne, just before the pandemic had us all cooped up at home, was probably a great example of driving things through digital medium. Through our different channels that we owned, through the campaign, which was mostly digital, and through the partnership that we had with Bell Media at the time, except for some radio spots, everything was done digitally. And we managed to bring the basketball community on both the men's and women's side together for an event that was talked about around town, around the country. We had different events that were all linked into it. And I think that is a great indication on how technology as a tool can help leverage and really showcase good partnerships in bringing people together, is probably the most honest answer I can give you to this question at this point in time.
For sure, and appreciate that transparency. I'll follow up with that question, and I'll toss this one up to you, Michele or Sheryl, to chip in on. But there's a really special event that happens here in Ottawa every year called the Panda Game, and there's also a name for the men's hockey championship, which is eluding me right now, between Carleton and Ottawa U. Maybe if either one of you want to chip in and kind of talk about that, and maybe any of the digital elements or anything digital that goes into making those events happen.
Sure, I'm happy. It's the Colonel By Classic for men and Alerts Cup for women. Yeah, God, what are we saying about them again, Chris?
I put you on the spot here with this question. I'm just curious to learn more about like the Panda Game and the promotion that goes out, and how you manage to get so many students to Lansdowne to watch two university teams face off against each other.
Well, with Panda, yeah, it wasn't like the overnight success. Like, and I think everyone says that about overnight successes. The first year we held Panda, and I'm calling Panda whenever it was at Lansdowne. So the first year Panda was at Lansdowne. You know, we spent our campaign then was about 3 times the size of what we spend now, and we drew about just over 12,000. I think it was 12,400. I probably said it was higher than that at the time. And then I think the next year was like almost 18. Then the next year was 21. And now it's ridiculous. It's you know, we could twice sell that place out with the demand from our student population. So I think, you know, we drew upon in the beginning, we drew upon the storied success of it because it was resurrected. It wasn't something started from new, unlike the Colonel By Classic, for instance. And soon enough, you know, the buzz got around the community, and also, you know, it's a 3-way partnership. So we're leveraging our partners at U Ottawa to promote to their students. Well, the first year, by the way, we did on our own only 12,000. The next year, U Ottawa joined and was almost 18,000. So it goes to show the impact, right? And then, of course, the beautiful facility at TD Place doesn't hurt either. And it's, you know, epic in comparison to the facilities at either U Ottawa or Carleton. So I sort of think it was momentum building. There was a lot of storytelling behind the scenes, talking about the rivalry and things like that. I mean, for us, as I'm sure our American counterparts on this call can attest to, that you can't do better than the rivalry that we have. Like, people will come to see us play U Ottawa in checkers, I would think. So, you know, add to that a beautiful stadium and a return football team. And for us, we had a brand new brand and logo, and it was just all very shiny and new. So that one, even though it didn't feel easy at the time, was easier than some of the others. Like Colonel By Classic, we struggle more with. It doesn't have a history to fall back on and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think just to quickly add to that, to go back to one of Sheryl's initial point, was that through the years, there was a lot of that having the technology for students to have that in their hands and for them to post those random little clips that kept popping up created that it's not cool anymore to use, but that FOMO, right? That fear of missing out, that kids just wanted to be there because their friends were there and they posted this video, and now they wanted to have the chance to capture the next video that would go viral. So while it might not have been orchestrated by our own powers, just the ability to have accessible technology helped build the profile of those events. And that applies mostly for football. I think we've seen it also with the basketball classic, now Capital Hoops. Hockey's our next project, and we'll take that on once COVID lets us do our work.
Awesome. Thank you, both of you, for those insights. Definitely really exciting things happening in Ottawa with all of those events. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. And at this point of the event, I would like to thank all of our panelists for their incredible insights and perspectives about how technology is playing a role in the collegiate industry. Before we introduce the founders who will be presenting their startups during this next half of the event, for feedback from our expert panelists, let me tell you how this is all going to go down. Each startup will have 3 minutes to present their company, which will be followed by feedback from each of our panelists. Chek will start us off by presenting first, followed by SportsFinda, and then Autonomy will present last, followed by feedback from our panelists. All right, let's get started. First up, we have Scott presenting Chek. Scott, if you could share your screen with us, your 3 minutes will begin once you start speaking. Just double check, Scott, your mic might be muted, but whenever you're good to go, your time will start.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Man, I just had a killer intro that was on mute. So so let's do this over again. Chris, Shannon, thank you guys so much for having me today. Panelists, what incredible dialogue around the collegiate space and how it's changing and transforming minute to minute now, which is something really exciting to see, but also very scary. So just for a little context, my name's Scott Garber. I'm the co-founder here at Chek. And Chek is an alternative cash management solution that has the ability to distribute funds from a central holding account out to fully controlled virtual or physical debit cards. So you guys might be wondering, like, why is this even in the sports realm? So my background, I'm a college football player here in the US, and my background's been in the sports tech space for the last 7 years. So Brandon, I was part of a company in your backyard called Stack Sports, and our property had 18 entities all under one umbrella. So I became acutely familiar with what was working and what wasn't working from a tech innovation space. So often we saw platforms focusing on money coming in, but never really focusing on solving the bottleneck of funds going out. And so Sheryl, earlier in the chat, you mentioned sort of that Ferrari versus a cruise ship analogy. And the college sports space traditionally moves so slow, and there was no really reason for them to iterate or grow to change those processes. So what we did here at Chek is we took a technology and a tech stack that is being used in other sectors of the market. So think small and medium businesses, different corporate entities. And we said, we're going to go and play where our incumbents don't and start to solve the problem and alleviate the bottleneck of funds leaving the university in a very controlled manner. So we ran our beta in the spring of 2020. And as you could imagine, it was very successful, coming in and modernizing the process and workflow to distribute these funds out to their athletes. Now, COVID came and just absolutely wreaked havoc on us as well. So like every good story in 2020, we had a great pivot. And so you'll see here that not only are we going to make an impact here with college and university as they start traveling again, but we took our technology and started to apply it to adjacent sports tech companies that are supplementing, supplementing funds for folks in their community, such as registration for youth athletes. And we are partnering with pro athletes and their 501(c)(3)s now to get money directly back into the community where they're playing and actually start to show the reach and the power of those donations, how they're being spent, and making sure that it's in a responsible way. So as I mentioned, very traditional, bottlenecked, not a good process. So we came in here, built this solution out. We're currently now starting to dabble our feet into the youth market and integrating with existing platforms. So think you have refs, coaches, and players that are now going to be able to get different disbursements of funds. We have the ability from an admin user to go ahead and set those schedules before the season. The funds show up on those cards in a virtual or physical state. We can set the geofence and or put the parameters around that card. And now we can go ahead and make sure that everyone's funds are being spent when and where they're supposed to. To bring this all full circle, COVID is absolutely a terror in the sports space, but I couldn't be more excited because now we have the ability to go ahead and adopt new technologies and adopt new concepts that have not been there traditionally. And as human capital is getting squeezed, it is going to be more imperative that we have an understanding of where every single dollar is being allocated, how it's being spent, and then most importantly, that loose change can now come right back into that account for future use and distribution. We are currently live servicing accounts here in the US, both from the youth to pro level and again in the nonprofit space, and look to continue our expansion into North America up north with you guys as we move into 21. I'm happy to field any questions, but before you guys sign off of here, be sure to check yourself. That's me.
Thank you, Scott. Great presentation. Just a quick reminder to unshare your screen. And for feedback, once you do so, we'll start with Dane.
Sorry, stop sharing. All right, ready to rock.
Awesome presentation, Scott. I mean, anytime cost centers can be optimized, that's always a plus. So keep that going. One thing you may want to consider is use cases around vendor integration and costs. Many times it's these projects, whether it's, travel, signage, things like that, that I've seen, even outside of a youth sports realm from the startup space, every organization really has those types of cost centers that are sometimes out of control in cost and time and budget. So great integration. And I think it's something to explore going forward.
Dane, much appreciated. Would love to connect with you offline and have a further chat.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Why don't we turn to Sheryl next and get your thoughts about the presentation?
Thanks very much, Scott. I love the energy and sounds great. I'm wondering, it's not feedback. I'm not going to say that managing the spends of our campus is really my forte, but what I'm curious to know is whether or not, and I don't expect you to answer this question, but is to consider the autonomy of the athletics departments in Canada. For example, we don't have financial autonomy separate of the university as a whole. So and I know there's a lot of complexity there. We obviously have disbursements that we have to our athletes and travel budgets and everything like that, but we need to put everything through our business office, which isn't necessarily very sports minded. And then we have our alumni advancement office that handles all of our donations. So integrating that. And so my suggestion would be, if you're presenting this to the business offices of the Canadian universities, is that you sort of draw a map for them and map it out, spoon feed. That's been my thing. So, but thanks, excellent presentation.
Thank you for the feedback, Sheryl.
Awesome. Turning next to Brandon for your feedback.
Yeah, I love this idea. I think it's awesome. I think there's a lot of applications and uses for this. So I think it definitely has a lot of potential to go somewhere. Again, I don't have a feedback or really a question, but imagine, something like this would be really hard to navigate with the NCAA and all the compliance rules and all the, and I'm sure you're very aware of that. So, I'm not sure if there's time for questions, but I was curious how you're navigating that and how that's either hindered or helped you develop this company.
30 seconds, Scott, go.
100%. So it's actually quite the contrary, Brandon. So there's been a lot of compliance issues with coaches having either a credit card or cash disbursements going out. So as we're coming in, we're actually positioned as a more compliant tool because we do sync with the business office who oversees the sports budget. And so this is a very transparent way to account for each one of those dollars. And as we continue to jockey for position, we see this as a real strategic angle with name, image, and likeness as athletes are able to earn as a real vehicle to distribute those funds.
Yeah, that's awesome then. Perfect time for you guys to be jumping in then.
Yes, sir. I'd love to
Yeah.
connect with you for a chat offline as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Awesome. And then we'll turn to Michele last for your thoughts on the presentation.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I think it's great technology. I think for someone where we have an institution that's working with finance systems that are probably 30 years old, and we're still processing expenses on paper form. So I think that's something that's really exciting to me. My initial thought was, if you want to get into the Canadian system, a bit like you have in the US, the Div 1, Div 2, Div 3, we have different layers to our varsity systems where for us, what we call competitive clubs don't necessarily have full-time staff. They work with student staff. They don't have team administrators. So having that ability to have an ease of management of finances for them to use their budget allocations and know what where that's happening might be a good way in to kind of ease in and then work your way up the chain.
Michele, I love your shirt. Really, really nice. Also, thank you so much for your feedback.
Well done, Scott. Thank you for your presentation. Following up on Scott, we've got Ahmad presenting SportsFinda. Ahmad, if you could share your screen with us, your 3 minutes will begin once you start speaking.
Hi everyone, my name is Ahmad Elhawli and I'm the founder of SportsFinda. So what is SportsFinda? SportsFinda is a digital ecosystem built on a suite of tools empowering students and student athletes to monetize on the emerging NIL market. What's our vision? Our vision is to build a college sporting ecosystem enabling students to monetize their personal brands, connect with like-minded athletes, and build an engaged following. So what is the current problem? The current problem is there isn't a digital ecosystem that really allows student athletes to do that. Let's not mix up digital channels and a total ecosystem that brings it all together. What's the solution? We've built that solution. The solution is a digital ecosystem that allows student athletes to connect with like-minded athletes, build their brands, and generate revenue. Student athletes are now equipped with a full suite of tools to monetize their NIL. The current landscape, as we all know, every year there's over 460,000 students that compete in the NCAA. In Division 1 alone, there's over 170,000. The total TAM is over $14 billion. It's a huge market. Our verticals are basically college stars brand and merchandise, the college student merchandise and equipment themselves, esports and gaming, and college equipment that they clear on an annual basis. What is our platform? We're basically available on iOS and Android. We have an online web presence, basically a marketplace, and we integrate into 5 e-commerce platforms. Basically means that we integrate into, if somebody has a Shopify store, we integrate into them. Products sync on both ends and everything stays up to date. We have a key partnership with a group called CSMG, who give us access to a network of over 750 schools and really put us in pole position when the NIL market opens up next year. Our features, there's a ton of features from individual seller profiles, following sellers, personal news feed, so on, but I really want to take you into our key features. Our first one is a live stream shopping, basically going live and the ability to sell your products during a live stream, people purchasing the product during the actual live stream without leaving the live stream. And messaging platforms for students to stay connected with one another, reach out to sellers, and stay informed. Experiences. Students are now able to sell in-person and online experiences. They can share their skill, their talent, take people behind the scenes, take people on dinners, go to stadiums, whatever. Basically, it's all now, they're able to do all that now from our mobile app. Auctions are fundraisers. They can launch an auction and they can do a fundraiser. And now the biggest part of our platform is a social media platform that we're launching in the coming week. So now students can express themselves through video, through post, through going live. Every student has their own profile. Every student can tell other students which college they go to, what position they play, what sport they play. They can be followed. Everything is basically on that profile. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Awesome, great presentation, Ahmad. Thank you for that. For feedback, after you unshare your screen, we'll start with Sheryl.
Thanks so much for that, Ahmad. It's kind of cool. It reminds me when I was saying about leveraging our student athlete ambassadors, you know, that we have on campus and how the technology has helped with that. I guess my main feedback would be that I would be, if I were looking at this product, my concern would be about my brand and how I can protect that if all of our athletes are out there branded as Ravens, but yet representing themselves. And is there any, like, hoping that there would be some sort of a monitoring or even scalable level from a brand management perspective. But other than that, I mean, I think it's amazing to be able to give the athletes and the teams ability to generate some profile for themselves and fundraising opportunities, which is very big on our agenda here. So I think it looks really exciting.
Yeah, Ahmad, if you want to respond in like maybe 20 seconds or less.
Yeah, basically in terms of the brand monitoring, there will be direct contact with the athletes, what they can and can't do based on what the school allows them to do. So that's all going to be based on when they sign up to us. So we have direct access to those athletes, and we're looking at also bringing on the schools with their own profiles so they can also govern what is put out and what isn't.
Awesome. Thank you both for that. Next, we'll turn to Brandon. What are your thoughts about the presentation?
Yeah, it was a good presentation. Thank you. And I look forward to the emerging technologies and things that come up with the name, image, and likeness legislation being passed. It's a great opportunity for student athletes. And I wonder if, you know, your product is geared more towards, you know, those mega big stars or maybe the average athlete, because, you know, the way I envision this sort of playing out, the NIL legislation is, you know, those big, huge athletes, they're going to make their money anyway. The big stars, you know, potentially getting drafted. And I really view this legislation really benefiting, you know, the Division III baseball player who can now go home in the summer and run a baseball camp, you know, in their hometown under their name. And that really benefiting them in that sense. So do you envision maybe those big stars really taking up a lot of the space and interest on your product? Or do you envision, you know, maybe some of the lesser known athletes being able to take advantage of it?
So actually, we're looking to work with the majority of the market, which is the lesser known athletes. Those larger stars are going to go to Instagrams and so on and try and monetize there. Good luck, because those platforms are transforming from day to day. There's never been a better time to start a social media network for our space, because the larger platforms are moving into a model of ad spend, and that's really their focus. Organic reach on those platforms right now is going only one way, which is down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, thank you.
Great points by both. Let's hear from Michele next.
Congratulations on getting ahead of that opportunity. I think there's a huge market there for sure. If I put the lens on a Canadian market, and I'm definitely not the expert in there, but I think there are different compliance conversations that would certainly need to happen in terms of that money management and what athletes have access to. But it's like anything else. Once you have a model in place that you can tweak and adjust through consultation, I think there's always avenues that way. So I think you're kickstarting that through the NIL legislation will get you through the door. And then if ever that becomes part of your business plan to expand to Canada, and there's other partners that you'll want to engage in figuring that out, but there's definitely a market there.
Thank you very much.
And let's hear from Dane for your last thoughts on the presentation.
Yeah, another great presentation. Thanks for that as well. And, you know, I echo what my fellow panelists have said here. And I think one thing to also consider, again, compliance is not my expertise by any stretch, but, you know, beyond name, image, likeness, is there an opportunity for some of these students in the market that you're testing it out to see, you know, similar to what Brandon said in terms of quality versus quantity, you know, aggregating something to consider of, you know, how many students you're really going to as you start and build this out to maintain, you know, those relationships with those brands is a key thing going forward as well.
I'll give you the last word, Ahmad, to respond.
Yeah, so basically in terms of the monitoring, it is going to happen through our relationships with the colleges. So our relationship with CSMG puts us in pole position in getting through to those colleges and making sure that the policies are there, that the guidelines are there. The tweaks and will be ongoing, obviously, as the space really evolves. But we're definitely open to discussing these things with others and making these tweaks where need be.
Awesome. Great feedback there from all of our panelists and a great presentation from Ahmad. Thank you so much for joining us today, man. Next up, we've got Nate. Nate from Autonomy. Nate, if you could share your screen, your 3 minutes will begin once you start speaking.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me. Hi, guys. My name is Nate Behar. I'm a current CFO wide receiver and the founder and CEO of Autonomy Marketing. The marketing world is changing. We all know that. We've talked about it on this webcast here already. Influencer marketing especially. 66% of brands are currently stating that they're increasing their influencer marketing spend year over year. And the influencer marketing market size is projected to grow from 8 billion in 2019 to 15 billion in 2022. But this does not come without its challenges and its problems. For brands on one side of our double-sided marketplace, it's difficult to find the right athletes and influencers for their specific campaign goals. Manually sourcing those influencers can take way too long. And then tracking this campaign success of these specific influencers that you took all this time to source is a task unto itself. On the other side, for athletes and influencers, we want to monetize our personal brands. I mean, this is a problem or a pain I can talk about myself personally, having spent 3 years in professional football myself. We want to get paid for the work and the influence that we've created year over year in the gym, on the court, on the track, or the ice rink, etc. But we just don't know where to go to find the brands that we want to work with. Who do we reach out to, and where, and more importantly, when do we reach out to them? So Autonomy Marketing, we are an influencer marketing platform to help brands find, engage, and launch ad campaigns with influential athletes faster. The problem is difficult. In-house solutions for brands, athletes, and athlete agents as well are difficult. As I touched on, they can be time-consuming. Sourcing deals and sourcing new creators or influencers to work with takes time. The legal that goes into every ad campaign agreement and invoicing and payment are all take a lot of time from your brand and from building your brand or building out, working on the things you want to work on as an athlete. These are hard to scale, and then going to ad or talent agencies is difficult because they can take large percentages of the pie. We're talking 10 to 20% at times. This problem alone can cost brands and sports agents over $50,000 annually, and athletes anywhere from $10,000 to $1 million in missed opportunities. What Autonomy delivers is a streamlined turnkey solution for brands, athletes, and athlete agents to help them connect with the right fits in just minutes. We're growth-minded and future-proof, and we're a solution that's built to last. We take both sides, we built a mobile phone application to help both sides streamline this entire process so you can grow your brand anywhere, from the office to the gym, in the Starbucks line, and everything in between. We take both sides of this marketplace through the entire deal cycle, all within our mobile phone application, from campaign application and campaign launch to negotiation, to applications, offers, and hiring, all the way through negotiations through our on-app CRM, content approval, legal, and payment, all done in one place, streamlined in our mobile phone application. We really are the turnkey solution to simplify the influencer marketing process for brands and athletes alike.
Awesome. Great presentation, Nate. Thank you so much for that. Just a quick reminder to unshare your screen. And for feedback this time, why don't we begin with Brandon?
And my Zoom here, guys. I'm sorry about
that. I think that's a very interesting concept company. You clearly have a great pitch on it. I like really how you focus on both sort of the brand and the individual athlete and how they both can benefit from it. I worked at an advertising agency, Octagon, and these were problems that we helped our clients with, was identifying the right influencer, right athlete for a lot of the projects I worked on. I don't really have a specific question or a specific feedback. I just think, it solves a lot of problems. So I think it's a good idea.
Appreciate that.
Great pitch, Nate. Next, we'll turn to Michele for her thoughts about the presentation.
Well, first of all, congrats for sticking to your time. I think that's a big thing. It's also, your presentation was shorter than the video intro that you have on the website for that. So no, I think it's a great concept. I think for having tried to run influencer programs for brands in the past, it's definitely the time component is a big thing. I think where the sell piece that I could expect you having to do with companies and brands is managing that trust component, where when you spend the time handpicking your influencers, you really go into more of that niche and figuring out the right personalities for the right piece of your product. So really having the balance of how much the ease of product is not taking away from the trust component will be a big piece, what I would expect you will face. But I mean, you're solving a pain point, so and making it open for the fitness and sport community. So that's a win.
Thank you, Michele. I appreciate that.
Great points there, Michele. Moving right along, Dane, would you like to give your feedback on the presentation?
Sure, great presentation, Nate. And there's lots of great insights and articles on this out there. But one thing to consider as well as food for thought as you build out your beta really relates to as you source influencers, popularity versus personability. And oftentimes that's a huge piece tied to how scaling happens. So just something to consider as you move forward. But another great concept.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, Nate, if you want to respond to that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in chatting about it even further, because I think I'd want to get your insight into how you differ between the two. But we really do want to build a marketplace where the most popular and the most personable both can survive, and want to leave those sort of decisions to the brands. We're trying to remove ourselves from being an agency and just create a marketplace that allows people to have sort of their free will to make those decisions. And that's why we've built in the chat function, so that you figure out if you like the person. If you like them, then let's sign them up and send them some gear and get this thing rocking.
Yeah, really great point. That relationship is so important, and it sounds like Autonomy is a great tool for that. So great job. Last and but not least, Sheryl, we'll give you the final word on the panel here to give your thoughts on the presentation.
Yeah, well, great job, Nate. It looks super interesting. Like Michele, I've dabbled in trying to do influencer marketing on my own in the past, and it's either incredibly manual, time-consuming, impossible to measure, or incredibly expensive, and you don't really have that trust. You don't really know if you've gone on a campaign with an influencer full of bots, or or where are all their followers? Are they even local? Like I personally here only have local conversion needs. The university has obviously a different perspective. And yeah, I just think that the only thing I would want to talk further about, if you get to have the closing word, is lining up ethos or personality or values of the brand with the rep. Mm-hmm. And making sure that there's some kind of an algorithm or something, like almost like a dating app to make sure that, like earlier, I know Brandon was saying gambling or whatever, like in our environment, we can't even basically talk about gambling. So, and also it's of course risky to line up with an athlete, because who knows whatever they may come out with down the road. But so, yeah, I think that would be the only thing I'd want to know about if you were presenting to me. But I think it is exciting, and it's I even had on my the innovation or technology side in the beginning, when I was going to say what is one of the biggest difference makers, I had considered influencer marketing. It's not technology, so I left it out, but now it is. Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks very much, Nate.
Go ahead and give your final thoughts on that point, Nate.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think one of the, there's only so much you can do to mitigate somebody lying about who they are, right? But we do allow influencers and athletes to self-categorize themselves within finite niches. Yes, you're a football player, but you can be a vegan, you can have a vegan food diet and be organic only, and all these different things into photography. So we allow people to categorize themselves in those sort of ways. And as we go and build, there is AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning tools that we can bring into the platform that auto-populate those sort of things. As we continue to grow on our product roadmap, those will be things that will be integrated to make sure that the right people are matching with one another.
Outstanding. Great job, Nate. Great presentation. And with that, this concludes our 6th event of our Sports Tech and Innovation series powered by FanSaves. I want to thank all of our panelists for taking their time today to give their insights on collegiate technology. And I'd also really like to thank our founders presenting their startups with us here today. We had 3 really different startups can tailor to the collegiate space. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here with us today. A reminder, this event will be posted to our FanSaves YouTube channel, so watch for that. Today's event was our last one before the holidays, but be sure to watch for more insightful events coming in the new year. Some of our upcoming events include esports, multimedia, back office tech, athlete tech, stadium tech, and health tech. To learn more about FanSaves or to request a demo, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or contact us through our website. Follow our social media pages for all updates and information about our future events. We would love to wish everyone, on behalf of the FanSaves team, a very, very happy and safe holiday. Thank you so much for joining us with us today. Have a great rest of your afternoon.